change is something that a lot of people don't like. So where are you when it comes to change? Do you embrace it, or are you like, please no? Well, if you were to ask me normally or in the recent past, I would have said change. No, that's not my thing. However, since I've been coaching or are being coached, and she's asking me that question about change, I have to say that because of the way the questions are expressed, that I'm starting to think about it a little bit differently, because I've noticed that I've actually changed a lot myself in the last couple of months. If I just look back on the last half year, I've done so many things I've never deemed possible. Having said so, I completely freaked out last Thursday. Well, freaked out was a big word, but close to it, when all of a sudden I got confronted with a lot of noise behind me, since I've got new neighbors who are behind me and they have set up this system. It's like 10,000 euros. So that's about $10,000. It's probably a little bit more expensive, depends on, the rating of the course in the euro. Sometimes one is more expensive, sometimes it's the other one, but it's pretty much interchangeable. So they like house music, and what happens with bass, and when you turn it loud, I hear everything. Now for 2.5 decades I've been here, and overall, it's a pretty much quiet place. It's nice to relax and calm down. There's good internet nowadays over here, which makes it easy for me to actually work. Unless, of course, there's a lot of noise. And I got so triggered today. All of a sudden, sound was there, volume was up, down. And I was having a training today, and I was completely like, oh my God, what's happening? What am I going to do? So quite soon after, we had a break. Fortunately, it was a little bit early, which allowed me to go for a walk outside. And I thought about it, and all these emotions were raging through me, like, if I cannot change this, I'm going to jump from a building. Please note, I'm not going to do so. It's just the initial thoughts that needs to have their course. Needless to say that other people did say so to me, and I was always like, well, I do believe it when they say so. Well, the next thing was, okay, I'm going to run away from this place. Well, running away is a big word, but finding a location where I can be. And actually, it's kind of nice outside, and in front of the building, I don't hear them because they are at the back of all the buildings. It was like, okay, but it's summertime, mosquitoes, not the best option. Okay, so what's next? Well, I could go to one of the hotels, but I don't know till what time they go on. And, well, I have training till probably 3-4 o'clock. So do I want to be there? And who's going to pay for the hotel if I want to stay in the room? All kinds of things just went around in my head. And then I was like, well, yeah, I can talk to them. And I was like, but I already talked to them. And I gave them my phone number. And I asked them, call me if you're going to put on the music. Okay. So by that time, I was sort of out of options. Everything like, oh yeah, I also thought about isolating the place here. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. Maybe move towards the other side of the wall, but that actually is also not going to work. And they've promised me that they are going to isolate it themselves. So probably a little patience might go a long way. Anyway, when I got back, I opened the door. I already had seen that there were not many cars. So I was like, okay, that could be positive. So I opened the door, no sound. Now here's the thing, and I do believe that I already said it in a different video, the mere fact that I am trying to figure out how much noise is still around is not the best of things to happen. I'll honestly say so. And it means that my baseline of being relaxed has actually gone all the way up. I know that. And in a recent video, I talked about it and I said, it's my pressure cooker normally is nowadays at 0 or maybe even negative. But now it's back up. And actually it had gone down again since the weekend. On Sunday I didn't hear them, Monday nothing, Tuesday nothing, and then today, of course, Wednesday, there it was again. So I was like, okay, it was quick and then it was gone. It was back and it was gone. So I do believe that they realize what I said. So I was thinking about it, like, okay, so what now? The good news was the training went on and I was completely sucked into the training. It was an amazing training. And this was the training from Burchard, which was Ultra. Some of the members who are in Growth Day, that's an app he uses, also can see the first part of the first day. I'm in the Ultra group, so we also have the evening and the second day. And we can come to LA whenever we want, unless, of course, it's only online. So every first of the month, and sometimes first and the second of the month, he gives training in LA. And we can be there, which is kind of cool to attend. Now, being there, I absolutely got absorbed in everything that was going on. And the funny thing is, well, funny is not necessarily the right word, is earlier when Ultra started, another training from Brandon started as well, which was a little bit annoying that it was at the same time, but I was like, okay, that one has to do with the coaching, so it also has to do with how to become a better coach. And quite interestingly, they talked about how can you use certain things, skills you are good at during coaching, also in your life. And when it comes to challenges you have, when it comes to coaching, how can you also work on those in daily life? And well, one of my challenges has to do with energy. I have had a lot of trouble falling asleep lately, and I've noticed that the quality of my sleep is not very good. As a result, when I wake up, I'm most of the time still sleepy. And one of the things that we talked about was energy. And I said, well, when it comes to coaching, I can summon the energy. When it comes to training, I can summon the energy. By the way, right now I'm still hyped from the training. So yes, I'm tired, but I'm still hyped. So that's why I'm getting out there. And thinking about that, we also talked about the future version of ourselves, what our role model would say. And I literally have written down like, well, oh, here it is. Stop with the nonsense. And I was like, okay. And usually when I connect with the future version of myself, so that's the one who already knows has all the skills, knows what to do. So our mind doesn't know the difference between what we are actually experiencing, so in the real world outside, versus what we are experiencing in the brain. Hence why we can prepare for certain situations where we actually feel at ease, where at first it's like, oh my God, that's going to be so exciting. I don't know if I want to do it. So we can train the brain. And well, in this case, the brain apparently is at the level of really down to earth, which is good. And which of course has to do with everything new is kind of exciting. Now, for those who might not have noticed this, apparently I'm somewhere on the spectrum. I heard that several times now from several people, and I do believe that's true. So Brendan at some point is asking this question, and he says, how do you deal with change? And the other question was, how do you manage chaos? And I was like, oh, that's nice. It's May the 1st. I actually am up for a new theme this month. I'm going to talk about change. Well, having talked about energy and how to deal with being low on energy, I was like, yeah, I can worry about it, because that's what we're talking about worrying and making sure that I'm rested enough for what else is coming. Or I just summon the energy and we'll see what happens. Often enough, I would drive back late at night, be on the highway, and also during the day when there were traffic jams, be on the highway, and I would stop, pull over at a gas station and just sleep for like an hour or something. Just enough till I would be able to focus on the road again and do my own thing. I would walk around. So it's not like it's unknown to me. So I was like, okay, no more excuses when it comes to that part. We're just going to do it and we'll see how it works out. So if I can push myself through the fatigue, then, and it's about knowing when to take a break, maybe go for a walk, exercise a little bit. So, gets the heart pumping, gets me moving again. So I was like, there's probably something possible. Remember? Change. Now, one of the things that I was wondering about when I was on the walk during the break, between the first part and the second part of Ultra, was like, okay, what is the lesson here? I believe that there's always something we can learn from circumstances. And my coach actually says, well, what do you project towards the universe? And, well, I know that this is not the ideal location for me. And I know that it's about working hard to change these things. But then something else popped up. I talk a lot with people who deal with anxiety, who are on the spectrum, whether it's one way or another, who are very sensitive to sound and to all other sorts of sensory input and change. Yeah, there we go. And I was like, okay, well, I understand them better than ever. If I was like, well, I understand that you want to jump from a building. Now I know why you're saying so. I always said it's about wanting to switch off the brain for a moment, just so you can do a reset. But this wasn't about doing a reset. This was way beyond. This was like, I don't want to be here when they're playing that music. So where can I go to? Oh, nowhere. So what's left? And then tonight, just now, I read something really interesting. So I'm reading this book about neurodivergence. So there are people who go through life and they're happy with everything. Well, at least as much as they can be. So neurotypical. And then there are people like me and my clients who actually have a huge problem when it comes to all kinds of sensory input. And, well, it's about adapting to change. And I was like, okay, so if we are talking about change, then what would I say when it comes, how can we deal with it? And in her book, she had described visualizing how the brainstem would turn blue. Now, one of the people who has said that I am most likely on the spectrum, he is too, said, you are in overdrive when it comes to blue. Blue hair, blue nails, lots of blue clothing. And that's true. My makeup, if I were to be wearing it, is blue. So blue pen, everything. If I can choose, it's going to be blue. And there she said it. Well, I calm myself down with blue, the color of blue. And I was like, oh my God, that's interesting. If that's a possibility to actually do so. And well, it's one of the things that I absolutely want to try. So I also know, of course, distancing myself from the situation always helps. That's why it was nice to actually go for a walk. And the training from Brendan did wonders. Absolutely. And when he was talking about change, well, actually, he didn't say that much about change. What we talked about was how to speak on stages and how to come across on video and how to share your story. So in this case, I used my story to get something across, which is about how to deal with change or with too much input, sensory input. But I know that there are people out there who actually need this part. So it's not about me venting. Well, that's something that also happens, which is good. But I want to make it more educational, more like, hey, that someone, if someone is listening, who is prone to too much input, that they can actually think about it and see how can they use it themselves. So I know that some people have certain earplugs which reduce the level of noise. Others just put on headphones. Well, I'm one of those people who wants to know what's happening behind me. So that doesn't usually work very well for me. But the idea of adapting, so what they say in the book is, when you are aware of what's going on, then you already have won half the battle. So it's not that you can actually adapt easier, but somehow it's easier, as in it's more acceptable, and you can deal with it easier because you can be yourself, because people know what it's like. And one of the things that I actually wrote down, and well, it's something that I've heard a long time ago, is if either you accept it and then, or you don't accept it, but that means that you have to change something. And the question, of course, is what are you going to change? And well, I told you about several things that I have done, like talking to them. They seem to be very understanding. I don't think they are aware of the impact it has on me. This goes beyond just loud noises. This is about me becoming really jumpy. And I think it might be about time that I actually explain it to them. But I'll see. But this is about what can I do? And well, I like the idea of visualization. Of course, walking just to clear my mind also is a good thing. And if this is going to continue, I will tell them how it makes me feel so they get a better understanding. All considered, for now, I'm like, hey, there's more to change than I'm not going to accept it. I don't want it. Because I've learned that, when it comes to curiosity and other stuff, it's actually quite nice. It's just that getting out there, getting out of our comfort zone, that's the hard part. Now, being an entrepreneur and also being a hyper person, I do like a little bit of adventure, But yes, I'm also one of those people who likes it when I've got a backup. So someone sitting next to me and, just, like, okay, I can connect with that person. I can go back and forth about certain things. And the moment that I can actually do that, I already feel a lot more at ease. So just recently, my car started giving me problems on the highway. And it was when I was driving a little bit faster that it actually had problems with shifting gear. It was going back and forth, and I was like, what's this? So, parked the car, called someone. What do you advise? Well, have you changed from gasoline to LPG? Yes, I did. Well, just go drive again. So, went driving again, same thing happened. Got off the road again, and cooled again, and I said, well, you know what, I'm going to take different roads, ones which avoid the highways. It's one of the good things about Google Maps. They actually give you that option. I'm not always happy with Google Maps, but that's one of the better inventions. So we talked about it, and that took the edge off. For me, talking about things is already such a big difference. And that's one of the first things that I would actually say to people. Talk to people about it so you can get a better understanding of what is happening with you and what it's doing to you. And in this case, I noticed that I was relatively safe as long as I didn't go to that certain speed. And well, then the next day or something, I heard like, well, your oil level was a little bit low, and I replenished it, and now it's good to go. So I'm like, okay, I haven't tried it yet, but I do believe it. And that's what I mean. Sometimes a little support can already go a long way. Talking about it, getting a better understanding already goes a long way. And that's exactly what this lady in her book is also writing about. She says the mere fact that we understand what is going on and that we can express ourselves, not change ourselves as in being pretending to be different, that already makes all the difference. And I was like, yeah, actually, I do believe that's true. So all things combined, I was like, well, I do like this month's theme. And yes, there's probably a lesson in all of this, like how to deal when certain things happen and the pressure cooker wants to kick back in. I don't like that feeling anymore. I mean, I do like adrenaline at certain times, but it's, going from there and then kicking back down, that's the hardest part, to actually be able to just go back to relaxing. And one of the ways I actually do it when I talk to my clients, well, that's actually twofold. One is I talk to them, and they also respond to my voice. And the other one is I do meditations with them. So I change my voice, I change the way I talk, and it soothes them. So that's good. Now, here's something which I do believe is funny. When we were talking about stage presence, one of the things which was frequently talked about was the change in voice, in vocals. So the whispering, the tonation, the volume. And it's something that I actually use a lot when it comes to meditation. So I've learned that in the last year, my clientele changed somewhat, and I've picked up more on things that I used to do when I was a therapist. And this is one of the parts that I actually really like, doing those meditations, working with the basic ideas of hypnotherapy. And of course, we can also influence ourselves in a positive manner. And since it's all linked to how the brain works and mindset, it's extra fascinating for me because, well, if you ask me what I'm passionate about, it's about mindsets and how the brain works and adaptability of the brain. Now, last but not least, I was in a breakout room. So in Zoom, you have breakout rooms. So if I was in LA, we would gather in groups of 4 or 5 people and we would talk to one another and it would be buzzer. But right now in a breakout room on Zoom, you actually get relocated. So you meet up with a limited amount of people and they actually call it room, whichever number it is. And I was kind of surprised because lately I've been thinking about what's the message I want to get across and which people do I want to help out. So, of course, I'm about speaking up and speaking out. So people all are heard, seen, respected, valued. And it's also about... Sorry, I'm distracted here for a sec. It's about being understood. That's probably number one. But basically, it's about communication and the various way that people perceive certain things. So if someone gives you an assignment and it's in a general description, then of course, how does that actually work for the receiver? Well, when we talk about neurotypical, so most of the people, they'll pick up on it. When you're talking about neurodivergent, they have lots more trouble with the question. I'm one of those people who actually does. So I like to ask like, okay, so is this what you mean? And I know that a number of my clients actually want to do the same thing. Now, getting back to the whole communication, neurodivergents are everywhere. They're also at the workplace. And there are a lot of people in IT, and there are a lot of neurodivergent types, people in IT. It's one of the things that I learned from early on. It's probably one of the reasons why I could get along very well with people who were in IT because, it takes one to know one. And today someone said to me, I need some help communicating to my employees. So she has a relatively small business. And one thing I was thinking about is, okay, I want to pick up on getting back to helping businesses, small businesses, with how to communicate with their employees. So talk about change. It's change in who I coach, but it's always been high on my wish list. One of the reasons why I also post on LinkedIn nowadays, which of course also requires change because then, different way of talking, doing, expressing different people. And then when I heard this, I said, oh, I want to work with you. Let's set something up. And maybe that's the most surprising outcome of the entire day, especially when it comes to change. I mean, this day has literally been about change all over. And it actually started, the whole idea behind change and doing things differently started when I started working with this coach. And her line of questions, also questions which have been put to paper, electronic paper by Brendan, so he really thought about it. But of course, this is also the coach. And I love her dearly. And we seem to really connect. So I'm looking at things from a more spiritual level, I guess. Well, I will say I don't know how to look at things, but I do believe that we can send a message to what it is we want, even if it's just to our brain. Hang on for a sec. I didn't plan on editing this, but I might. If so, then you know why. But I'm about to wrap things up, so hopefully I can manage just a little while longer. But this idea, this whole thing about relocating, about working on a different level with people, having people being seen, heard, and understood, also within companies, because that's what it started out with for me. It was way before I heard about the spectrum or anything that I was like, I'm not happy with how communication is going on within companies. I don't believe they're doing what should be done. And then, of course, when I had my clients over here working one-on-one, it changed a little bit. Then, for some reason, I got all these people who were dealing with, well, it's not just being on the spectrum, it went way beyond that. But you were like, if I don't have any perspective, I'm going to opt out. One actually did. The other ones I was able to help out. And knowing how the workplace can have such an impact. So I also lost a colleague back in the days. If I could change things there too, we're talking about the legacy I want to leave behind, which is about communication. And I've always said, if I can start with a manager or the owner of the business, and I can involve the employees, you in turn have partners, families, friends, children, which then goes to the next generation, instead of starting with one person who then has a partner, family, friend, and already have a bigger layer. So the ripple effect will be much bigger. Now, wouldn't that be cool? And all of a sudden, things are happening. And that's what I mean. I do believe that it's about what are we open to when it comes to messages? What do we actually see as opportunities? So are we close-minded? Or are we, it's like when you've got a new car, and then all of a sudden you see the same car like everywhere. Well, that's when it comes to opportunities, I believe that this is also about how open are we to change. Well, this month is going to be about change, and if there is something you would like me to talk about, then let me know. But for now, I'm going to ask you, what is the one thing that you would like to see changed, and what have you done for yourself? Have you taken action? Are you just like, or is there something you can actually do? And what do you think you could learn from what's going on? I'm kind of curious, so let me know.